Hello, I'm Anne Kerr. Welcome to my art studio. Have you ever gone into an art shop and been mesmerised by the number of brushes there are to choose from? Well, in this video, I'm going to make that choice much more simple for you, and also, most importantly, to tell you about the brushes that you shouldn't buy. Are you ready? Tips, techniques and tutorials to help you with your art. If you're new here, consider clicking that subscribe button and you'll find links to some of the products I mention in the description below the video. Let's get started. Have you ever watched somebody doing a demonstration of painting and they're using a particular brush and you think, aha, if I can get hold of that brush, then all my troubles will be over and all my problems will be solved. So off you go down to the art shop, you buy that brush and you come home and you start using it. Are all your problems over? No. A couple of weeks later, you're reading a how to paint book, and the person who wrote the book is using a different brush. So you think, aha, if I could get hold of that brush, then my world will change and all my problems will be over. So off you go down to the art shop again and you buy that particular brush and you come home and you start using it. Are all your problems over? No. And a few weeks later, you find somebody who's using an even different brush and you buy that one, and so it goes on. Let me show you something. Yep, I've been there, I've done it. I've bought every brush there is on the market and I've tried them all. Did it change my world? Did it solve all my problems? No, of course it didn't. But what will solve the problems? Well, the answer is to have a few well-chosen brushes that you can get used to. You know what they'll do, you know what they won't do, you use them all the time, and you don't use anything else. That's the answer. So in this video, I'm going to try and simplify all the different kinds of brushes that there are in order to help you. A bit later in the video, I'll let you in on what I use myself, the brushes I use, what they do and what they won't do, and the reason why I chose them. Watercolour brushes come in two different shapes, round and flat. You can obviously get different size rounds, and you can get different size flats. But let's just look at the individual shapes for a moment. You can get all different kinds of variations of these two. You can get special brushes for painting trees, special brushes for painting foliage, special brushes for painting water, fan brushes, rake brushes, sword brushes, here they all are. Believe you me, you don't need any of them. And I'll show you why in a minute. So let's get rid of those. So round brushes and flat brushes. Now the only difference between them is that this one obviously has a lovely point on the end, and this one has a very sharp edge, like a chisel edge. There is a different kind of round brush, which is this one, and that's known as a mop. Now the mop doesn't have this lovely point on the end. It has a rounded end. So the use of that brush is actually quite restricting, because all it's useful for is for covering big areas, big washes, maybe for wetting your paper, but it can't do any detail because obviously it hasn't got the point on the end like this one. So a bit restrictive, this one, so I probably wouldn't bother with that. So we're back to our round and our flat. Now the difference between all the brushes on the market, we can divide them up into rounds and flats, and we can also divide them into 3 types of bristle or hair that they're made of. So the 3 types of hair or bristle on the brush are natural hair, and you've got the artificial or synthetic hair, and then you've got one in between the two, which is a mixture of natural hair and synthetic hair. Now these will also come in the flat brushes. So what's the difference in these types of hair? Well, the natural hair brush, which by the way is always more expensive. If I wet this brush and I paint a little bit with it, which is absolutely gorgeous, it covers beautifully. Can you see that that doesn't go back to its natural shape? And if I move the brush around like this, and if I was doing some texture or something, then the brush ends up like that. With a synthetic brush, when you wet it and you paint something, even if you move it around like this, it will more or less go back to the shape it was when it started. It has what we call snap. It snaps back to its original shape. So that's the difference between the natural hairbrush and the synthetic hairbrush. Now if that doesn't bother you, not going back to its natural shape, then absolutely fabulous brushes. Now the synthetic hairbrushes, you can get more precise detail, you have more control over the point of the brush. The one in the middle of those two, which is the mixture of the natural and synthetic, let's paint with that one. So there again, beautiful lines, because it holds so much paint. Anything that has any kind of natural hair in it will hold an enormous amount of paint, much more than the synthetic brushes will. So you don't need to load your brush as often, which means that the transparency of the paint will be better. The more times you have to load your brush and keep going back over and back over, it's going to get duller and duller. But if you only have to do a few strokes with a large brush full of paint, then that's going to give you more transparent paintings. So if you are a beginner, then maybe the artificial hair or the mixture of natural hair and artificial hair would be the best choice for you. Now I mentioned just now that there are all different kinds of speciality brushes for doing trees and foliage and water and all sorts of things like that. Well, let me show you something. Now this is a fan brush because it's shaped like a fan. Now people say that you can use this for painting grasses and little bits of foliage, and you can use it to paint water and all sorts of things like that. Here we go. Yep, you can use it to paint grasses. Now, this is my round brush, and I've squeezed it just here below the ferrule. Ferrule's the metal bit. I've squeezed it, and I'll dip it into my paint. Watch. I've made my own fan brush. I don't need this. I can do this perfectly well with my own little round brush. Okay, what about painting water? So let's get some blue paint. And on the fan brush, let's have water coming down. Great, yeah, fantastic. I'll wash out my round brush that I used. Put that into the paint. And I'm going to squeeze it again, just like I did last time, which is here at the base of the ferrule. Turn my hand over because it makes it slightly easier that way. Now you tell me what's the difference. So special brushes like this, you don't need them. Throw them away. Another one of those brushes that is advertised is called the sword brush. And it's supposed to make incredibly fine lines, little narrow fine lines. So let's have a look. Yeah, it does. Brilliant. So that's the sword brush. But if I pick up my little rigger and I do exactly the same thing with my little rigger, great. So, why do I need one of those when I can do everything I want with my rigger? Not only can I use the rigger for very fine lines, but it's great for doing bits of texture. If you were doing little bits of grass in the front of your painting, look at the lovely texture you can get just by using the edge, the flat side of my little rigger. Such a versatile little brush. Just to show you that you don't need to have all these special brushes to get good effects and things in your watercolour painting, this little example here was painted purely with my big wash brush and my little rigger. That's all I used for that. The waterfall at the bottom here, all I did was squeeze out my round brush and I used that to paint the waterfall. I made it into a fan shape. The rocks were just splodges of paint scraped away with a piece of plastic, and we'll look at that technique a bit later on. And this one, where you've got a big area of bushes and some foliage at the bottom, was painted purely with that, which is my big goat hair wash brush, and a little rigger just to do some little details in between the foliage. So that just goes to show that you don't need to have lots and lots and lots of special brushes. Stick to the ones you've got, learn what they do, and my basic 5 brushes plus my little rigger is all I ever use. I said at the beginning of the video that I would let you know the brushes that I use myself and why I chose them. Well, these are the brushes that I use all the time. I've got my big wash brush, which is made of goat hair, so that's the only pure hair, a natural hair brush I have. My round wash brush, which is a mixture of natural and synthetic, and the others are also a mixture of natural and synthetic. I've got 2 smaller rounds. I very rarely use that one actually, but it's there just in case. And I've got my 3/4 inch flat and my little rigger. And I do all my paintings, everything I do, whether it's a huge painting or whether it's a tiny painting, and I use those brushes and those brushes alone. Now these 3 brushes here, I discovered these a few years ago now, and they're made by Escoda. And Escoda is a company in Spain, and funnily enough I live in Spain, and I didn't realise that these brushes were made there. And I came across these and I've used them ever since. They're absolutely fabulous. They do everything I want. Now I've made a link in the description below the video for this little set if you're interested. Even though they're professional brushes made by the Escoda company, which make the most fantastic pure squirrel hair brushes as well, these are not particularly expensive. So have a look at those. So little brushes like this, no good. Throw it away. Now, this painting behind me here, the whole painting was painted with one of those, which is a hake or a hake. This painting here, the whole painting, everything was done with that. I hope this video has been useful. If it has, then go and find yourself some good brushes. You'll only need a few. You don't need a whole collection like this. Choose the ones that are right for the sort of work that you want to do. Click the subscribe button and the little bell icon, and that will let you know when I upload a new video. And remember, there's an artist in everyone. I'll see you